I want you to try and think back to maybe like 2008, right around when the very first smartphone app stores launched.
Oh, wow, yeah. The really early days of the mobile web.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, there were, what, maybe 500 applications available total?
Yeah.
It was a ghost town compared to today.
Basically, yeah. I mean, if you built anything, people saw it.
Right. If you built, like, a flashlight app that just literally turned the screen of the phone white,
Yeah.
you made global tech news.
Which is just crazy to think about now.
It is. I mean, millions of people downloaded those early apps because, well, it was one of the only things to actually look at.
Mhm.
But if you fast forward to today, you are competing in, I guess you could call it the most brutal attention drought in human history.
That's a really good way to phrase it. An attention drought.
Because there are millions upon millions of apps out there now. And the vast majority of them, like almost all of them, will never be downloaded by a single human being.
Yeah, they just sit there gathering digital dust.
Literally. You could spend your entire weekend, pouring your soul into building the most elegant, life-changing piece of software imaginable. And then you drop it onto the internet on a Monday morning, and it just instantly sinks to the bottom of this digital ocean.
Completely unseen by anyone.
Exactly. It's totally invisible. So today, we are doing a deep dive into a highly technical dispatch. It's a system update from June 18th, 2026, issued by Pi Network.
Right, and this specific update is fascinating.
It really is. Because it might just hold the actual blueprint for how anyone, from a seasoned software developer to just someone messing around with AI on their lunch break, can actually survive this attention drought we're talking about.
Yeah, so the document we're analyzing today is specifically focused on this feature called ecosystem directory staking.
Which, I mean, let's be honest, sounds like incredibly dry back-end infrastructure at first glance.
Oh, totally. It sounds like something only a network engineer would care about. But it is actually a massive, massive behavioral experiment.
Okay, wait, how so?
Well, think about it. The internet has spent the last, 2 decades trying to figure out how to organize information, right?
Right, like search engines and social media feeds.
Exactly, figuring out how to point human eyeballs at the things that actually matter. And this update details a radical departure from the algorithms we are so used to seeing everywhere else.
So it's moving away from the typical black box algorithm.
Yes, we are looking at a system that is attempting to replace that corporate curation with decentralized, cryptographically verifiable human attention.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because when you read through this June 2026 update, it really does not read like a standard list of bug fixes or patch notes.
No, not at all. The framing is very deliberate.
It explicitly frames the Pi network not just as a blockchain, but as an attention resource. I think that's the exact phrase they use.
Yeah, that's right. And they also call the network a user acquisition resource.
Right. So before we even touch the mechanics of, how you actually stake a digital asset, we really have to understand the modern developer's dilemma that this document is pointing directly at.
Which is the core problem they identify right away.
Yes, the source text hits on this instantly. It's the rise of AI-assisted tools.
It highlights this really fascinating paradox, right? Because AI has effectively obliterated the barrier to entry for creating an application.
Completely wiped it out.
Like, just a few years ago, if you wanted to spin up a functional app, you needed a whole team.
You needed a back-end database architect, a front-end designer, someone doing QA testing. It was a massive undertaking.
Exactly. It was expensive and slow. But now, with natural language models, an individual can just generate complex functional code in an afternoon.
Just typing prompts into a chat box.
Right. But the consequence of making creation that effortless is that you completely flood the market.
Because everyone can do it now.
Exactly. In any economic system, when the cost of production drops to near zero, the supply of that product just approaches infinity.
It's like everyone on Earth just woke up one day with a free high-speed printing press installed right in their garage.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Right. Like, thanks to AI, you can print millions of copies of the most beautifully written newspaper every single morning, practically for free.
But the problem is distribution.
Exactly. You don't have a delivery truck, there's no distribution network, there are no paper boys, no newsstands on the corner.
So your newspapers just sit there.
Yeah, your brilliant newspapers just pile up in your garage until they literally hit the ceiling. AI gave everyone a printing press, but it didn't give anyone a delivery truck.
And that supply of digital newspapers is just skyrocketing every single day. But the demand, our actual capacity to consume them, remains completely fixed.
Because human attention does not scale.
Exactly.
Mhm.
We still only have 24 hours in a day. We only spend a finite number of those hours looking at a screen.
Right. There's a hard limit.
So the cognitive bottleneck of the 21st century isn't production anymore. It is sorting.
And that is why the framing in this update is so critical for us to look at,
Yes. Because when the Pi network positions itself as an attention resource, it's leaning heavily on a specific metric mentioned in the text.
which is the engaged user base, right?
Right. Over 60 million engaged pioneers.
Okay, so going back to my garage analogy, imagine stepping out of your garage, which is just overflowing with unread newspapers, and suddenly you find yourself in this enclosed, highly active city of 60 million people.
Which is basically the population of a major European country.
It is. For a solo developer, gaining access to an engaged user base of 60 million people is the holy grail. It's everything.
Because you aren't fighting against the entire open internet anymore.
Right. Out there on the open web, you have massive corporations spending billions of dollars on SEO. They're manipulating algorithms just to get a banner ad in front of a passing user for half a second.
But here, you are inside a specific contained ecosystem.
Exactly. But accessing a large room is only step one, right?
Correct. And the GIN 2026 update directly addresses step 2.
Which is, what do you do when thousands of other developers are also in that exact same room, using the same AI tools to build their own apps?
Yeah, because if 60 million people are in an ecosystem, they aren't just sitting in silence waiting to look at your specific project.
They're distracted. They're navigating other apps, talking to other people.
You still need a mechanism to force the cream to rise to the top. The network needs a filter to decide what actually gets put in front of those 60 million pairs of eyes.
Which brings us to the sorting mechanism. And I think we need to contrast this with how things normally work.
Yeah, that's a crucial comparison.
Because the traditional internet, Web 2, they already built a filter for this years ago.
We did.
If you want to know what the best app is or like the best restaurant in your town, you look at the reviews, you check the 5-star ratings, you read the comments.
Right, that's the standard Web 2 curation model.
But the Pi Network update draws a very sharp, very deliberate contrast here. The text explicitly compares typical Web 2 app directories, which just rely on comments, with Pi's new system.
Where the community reviews apps through, and this is a quote from the text, an actual stake with economic weight.
Right, economic weight.
Because the source text is identifying a fatal flaw in the architecture of the current internet. Web 2 curation is built on this premise that user sentiment can be reliably captured through text and binary rating scales.
Okay, I am going to push back on that being a fatal flaw, though.
Okay, good.
Aren't comments and star ratings kind of the ultimate democratic tool?
In theory, maybe.
I mean, I don't have to pay a fee to leave a Google review for a coffee shop. Anyone, regardless of their financial status, can download an app, experience it, and leave a written critique.
That's true.
So why is assigning economic weight to an app ranking inherently better than just letting users leave a free star rating? Doesn't adding an economic requirement just build a paywall around free speech?
I see what you're saying, but you really have to look at the vulnerability of a system where the input costs absolutely nothing.
Okay, walk me through that.
Because Web 2 comments and ratings are entirely free to produce, they carry zero friction. And in a digital environment, any action that carries zero friction can, and eventually would, be automated and weaponized at scale.
You're talking about bots.
Exactly. If it costs a developer nothing to create one fake account, it costs them practically nothing to create 100,000 fake accounts.
Right, because the AI can just generate the email addresses and the text for the reviews.
Yes. And this leads to the massive, multi-million-dollar industry of astroturfing.
Where bot farms generate the illusion of grassroots support.
Precisely. You can literally just go online and buy 10,000 5-star reviews for your own app.
Or I guess on the flip side, you could deploy a swarm of bots to review bomb a competitor's app into oblivion.
Which happens all the time.
Wow. So the total lack of friction actually destroys the democracy of the system.
It completely ruins it.
Because the loudest voice isn't the consensus of the people anymore. It's just the person who rented the biggest server farm to run the most bots.
Exactly. There is absolutely no skin in the game. If I leave a fake review, I lose nothing if the app turns out to be terrible. I risk no capital. I sacrifice no resources.
It's just empty words.
But the ecosystem directory staking model described in this Pi Network update completely flips that architecture on its head.
By requiring users, so either individual pioneers or businesses, to stake actual Pi on the main app blockchain to boost an app's visibility.
Right. The ecosystem is introducing crypto-economic friction.
Okay, let's define what that actually means in practice for the listener. We are talking about taking a cryptographic asset, which is pi, and locking it up.
Yes, locking it in a smart contract.
So you aren't spending it like a currency to buy an ad, right? You're just encumbering it.
Correct. The user is utilizing a smart contract mechanism on the mainnet to essentially freeze a portion of their assets for a predetermined duration.
So they can't touch it while it's staked.
Exactly. During that time, they cannot spend that pi, they can't transfer it, they can't use it for any other utility on the network. They are voluntarily sacrificing liquidity.
And that sacrifice is the economic weight the text refers to.
Yes, because a bot farm cannot easily simulate the locking up of real, scarce cryptographic assets on a mainnet blockchain.
It's mathematically impossible for them to fake that friction.
Exactly.
But, wait a second. Doesn't this economic weight concept just replace the bot farm oligarchy with, like, a financial oligarchy?
How do you mean?
Well, if I am a massive, well-funded corporate developer, can't I just buy a massive amount of pi, stake it all in my own app, and completely dominate the directory?
That's a valid concern.
Because how does this solve the problem for the solo creator who has a brilliant idea but has no capital to stake on themselves?
That is the critical distinction between centralized paid advertising and decentralized directory staking. The update actually describes this as a self-service avenue driven by the community.
Okay, driven by the community.
Right. While a well-funded developer could theoretically stake their own pi, the sheer scale of the 60 million-strong Pioneer network is fundamentally designed to overwhelm isolated pockets of capital.
Ah, I see. It's a numbers game.
Exactly. The visibility of an app is determined by the aggregate weight of the community. It is crowdsourced curation at a massive scale.
So if a solo developer builds something genuinely useful, they don't actually need to stake their own capital.
They really don't. They just need to convince a tiny fraction of the user base to lock up a small amount of their respective assets.
And that aggregate lockup acts as a mathematical, verifiable signal of real human interest.
Yes. It's the difference between thousands of anonymous bots saying, this is good, and thousands of verified humans saying, this is good enough that I am willing to temporarily lock up my own assets to prove it.
Wow. The friction is the filter. I see it now.
It really is.
You are essentially bringing the gold standard back to the internet. Instead of printing fake visibility with bot reviews, every single unit of visibility is backed by a tangible asset sitting in a cryptographic vault.
That's a perfect way to summarize it.
So how does this actually manifest for the user? The text goes into some very concrete details about the anatomy of this ecosystem directory. Where is this actually happening on the phone?
The source outlines the specific user interface quite clearly. This directory lives within the Pi browser, specifically under the Pi Apps tab. It functions as a categorized hub.
Right. The update mentions that pioneers can browse by category, and this applies to mainnet apps, Pi App Studio apps, and even centralized exchanges that integrate with the network.
Yeah, it covers a wide range of integrations.
And there was a visual update released in June 2026, right?
Yeah.
The text notes that this was explicitly designed to overhaul this experience.
Yes, UX improvements to enable easier ecosystem discovery and navigation.
So when you open that Pi Apps tab, you are essentially looking at a dynamic, constantly shifting leaderboard.
Basically, yes.
So just to clarify the user experience, as a user, I am looking at a screen where the order of the apps is physically moving based on real-time on-chain data.
That's exactly right.
So as thousands of pioneers across the globe decide to lock up their Pi for a specific app, that app's icon literally rises higher on my screen.
Yes, increasing its exposure and driving more traffic to it instantly. The causal link is direct and unmediated.
That is wild.
The source text states that staking directly increases the app's exposure to the Pi community, which results in more impressions.
It's so different from the Apple App Store or Google Play.
Completely different. Contrast this with the traditional App Store model. When you open those traditional stores, the apps featured on the front page were placed there by a team of corporate editors.
Right, or by some opaque algorithm that is just optimizing for the platform's ad revenue, not necessarily the user's benefit.
Exactly. But here, it is entirely decentralized curation. The community operates the spotlight.
But what makes this really intriguing to me is how the update positions this specific tool within the broader Pi ecosystem.
Yeah, because staking isn't the only option.
Right. Staking isn't the only way a developer can get noticed. The text explicitly defines ecosystem directory staking, which it notes originally launched a year prior in June 2025 as a lightweight platform-level utility.
The word lightweight is doing a lot of heavy lifting in this document.
It really is. The update contrasts this staking mechanism directly with other more traditional avenues offered by the network.
Specifically naming the Pi ad network and the Pi launchpad.
Right. It says those alternative routes require, quote, more work in application and approval processes.
Yeah, so if you want to use the ad network, it's a heavier lift.
So if I want to run a traditional campaign on the Pi ad network, I am filling out forms, I am waiting for an administrative team to review my creative assets, check my compliance, and actually hit an approval button.
Which is standard for Web2 advertising, but it's a lot of bureaucracy.
Right. Bureaucracy is a friction of its own. Navigating those approval processes, dealing with account managers, optimizing your ad copy, that is a full-time job.
It is. That heavyweight model works perfectly for an established studio or a business that has a dedicated marketing department.
But not for an individual.
Exactly. The text explicitly states that this lightweight directory staking is designed to require minimum effort in setup and participation.
It just removes the gatekeepers entirely.
Yes, it completely bypasses them.
Which perfectly sets up my absolute favorite phrase in this entire document.
Oh, I know which one you're going to say.
It's so good. When listing who this minimum effort utility is actually designed for, the text calls out developers, creators, vibe coders, and pioneers.
Vibe coders.
Yes, I am obsessed with the term vibe coders. It completely validates what we were talking about earlier with the AI paradox.
The inclusion of vibe coders in a formal technical update is a massive cultural tell.
It really is.
Yeah.
It acknowledges a fundamental shift in the demographics of who is actually creating software right now.
So let's build a profile of the vibe coder based on what we know about this new AI landscape.
Okay, let's do it.
This is not someone who spent 4 years at a university learning C++ or advanced Python syntax.
No, definitely not.
This is someone operating entirely at the conceptual level. They have an aesthetic vision, a vibe they want to achieve, and they just use natural language prompts to tell an AI to build the underlying architecture.
Right. Imagine this person. It's like 200:00 a.m. on a Tuesday. They just had a brilliant, totally weird idea for a niche application. They spend 3 hours just iterating with an AI chatbot. And suddenly, by sunrise, they have a fully functional app.
And that individual does not have an LLC.
Yeah.
They do not have an advertising budget. They certainly do not have the time or the patience to submit formal applications to the Pi ad network and wait weeks for approval.
Because the administrative overhead would just instantly kill their creative momentum.
Exactly. So for the vibe coder, this lightweight utility is an absolute lifeline.
They deploy their AI-generated app to the Pi ecosystem instantly. If the app is actually good, if it captures a unique vibe, a small handful of pioneers notice it.
And those pioneers stake a tiny amount of Pi.
Right. And that tiny stake pushes the app slightly higher on the Pi Apps leaderboard. More people see it, more people stake, and suddenly this project, built at 2 a.m. by one person in their bedroom, is experiencing a compounding viral loop.
Eventually reaching a massive chunk of those 60 million users.
The barrier to entry for distribution has been artificially lowered to perfectly match the lowered barrier to entry for creation.
That's beautifully put. The architecture of the ecosystem is adapting to the realities of AI-assisted creation. The network understands that if the tools of creation are spontaneous and rapid, the tools of distribution must also be spontaneous and rapid.
Exactly. Okay, so we have spent a lot of time analyzing the theory behind all of this. The philosophy of the attention economy, the flaws of Web 2 reviews, the mechanics of on-chain locking, and the glorious rise of the vibe coder.
But we need to look at the data.
Right. Because the listeners probably wondering, does this actually work? Is this just a really elegant idea on paper? Or is there empirical evidence that this lightweight mechanism can actually move the needle in a meaningful way?
Well, the source text anticipates that exact skepticism. It provides a concrete, data-backed case study to validate the entire efficacy of the model.
The City Games phenomenon.
Yes.
When I first read the numbers in this section of the update, I legitimately had to read them twice.
They are quite startling.
The text details the beta launch of an app called City Games. It states that in less than 1 week after its beta launch, the app's ranking was organically boosted by 3.19 million staked Pi.
We really need to pause and analyze the sheer velocity of that capital mobilization.
Please do.
3.19 million Pi locked up by a decentralized community in under 7 days for a product that was still in its beta phase.
It's massive. And the result of that locked capital is what truly matters here. The text says that this staking resulted in strong visibility and over 1.2 million gameplays in under 1 week.
1.2 million plays in a week.
Let's translate that into traditional tech industry terms. If you go to a Web2 game developer in Silicon Valley and ask them what it would take to get 1.2 million verified human gameplays on a beta launch in 7 days.
Oh, they would start outlining a multi-million-dollar global marketing strategy.
Literally. They're buying out the front page of Twitch. They're running unskippable YouTube ads on every tech channel. They are paying influencers 50 grand a pop just to play the game on stream.
But the crucial modifier the text uses to describe this event is organically.
Yes, organically boosted.
City Games did not deploy a massive corporate budget to achieve those 1.2 million plays. They leveraged the crypto-economic mechanics of the ecosystem.
The pioneers recognize value.
Yes. They signaled that value by locking 3.19 million pi, and that visible, unfakeable signal of community trust served as a lighthouse, just drawing an enormous wave of user traffic.
It completely validates the theory. The 60 million pioneers aren't just a passive audience sitting in a room staring at a screen. They are an active, mobilizing force.
The economic weight functions exactly as designed. It cuts through the noise of the AI app flood and directs human attention incredibly efficiently.
The City Games case study basically proves that the ecosystem directory is not merely a bulletin board.
No, it is a high-velocity user acquisition engine. It demonstrates that decentralized curation can achieve results that historically required massive centralized marketing budgets.
Okay, so I am putting myself in the shoes of a pioneer listening to this deep dive right now.
Okay, let's hear it.
I am looking at these numbers. 3.19 million pi staked, 1.2 million plays. And I'm thinking to myself, this is my golden ticket. Right. I'm thinking all I have to do is go into the Pi browser, find the most popular apps that are clearly going viral, and lock up my Pi on them. The network is going to reward me handsomely for being such a great curator and providing this valuable economic weight.
Yeah, that's a very logical assumption to make.
But there is a massive twist at the very end of this document. It completely upends that assumption.
It is arguably the most important structural decision detailed in the entire update. Without this final piece of architecture, the entire directory would collapse in on itself.
Right at the bottom of the text, there is a section labeled simply Note, and it drops an absolute bombshell.
It explicitly states, quote, "There are no Pi rewards at the protocol level for staking."
It clarifies that the network itself does not promote one Pi app over another. And it says that once the staked duration has ended, the original staked amount is simply returned to the user.
Nothing more, nothing less.
Absolute protocol neutrality.
Yes.
I'm going to push back incredibly hard here, because on the surface, this sounds utterly broken.
How so?
I am the user. I take my scarce digital asset, I lock it up in a smart contract, I lose my liquidity for weeks or even months. I help an app like City Games get 1.2 million plays and achieve massive success. Right. And my reward from the blockchain for providing this vital curation service is literally zero. I just get my initial deposit back. Why on earth would I do that?
It seems counterintuitive.
It makes zero economic sense for the individual pioneer. Why would anyone lock up their assets if the protocol doesn't guarantee a return on that investment?
To understand why this is actually a stroke of genius, we really have to look at the history of other decentralized networks that tried the exact opposite approach.
Okay.
We have to look at the phenomenon of yield farming and mercenary capital.
Explain how that works when the protocol actually does pay you.
Okay, so in many other Web3 ecosystems, the protocol itself automatically mints new tokens and issues them as a guaranteed reward to anyone who stakes their assets on a project.
Like an interest rate.
Exactly. The intention is to incentivize participation. But human behavior optimizes for the highest return with the least amount of effort.
Always.
If the Pi Network protocol automatically paid pioneers a guaranteed 5% return for staking on any app in the directory, the pioneers would immediately stop caring about the quality of the apps.
Oh, wow. They wouldn't even look at what the app actually does.
Exactly. They would build automated scripts to scan the directory for whichever app was already generating the highest yield, and they would blindly lock their Pi there simply to farm the protocol rewards.
So the staking would no longer be a signal of genuine human interest.
Right. or a measure of an app's utility. It would merely be a reflection of mercenary capital chasing automated yield.
The directory would become entirely useless as an attention resource.
Completely useless.
Oh, that is fascinating. If the network pays you to vote, you don't actually care who you vote for. You just care that your vote was registered so you get your paycheck.
Precisely. The entire concept of economic weight loses its meaning because the motive is corrupted by the underlying infrastructure.
The friction stops being a filter for quality and just becomes a game of musical chairs for yield farmers.
Yes. So, by maintaining absolute protocol neutrality, by strictly offering zero protocol level rewards, the Pi network forces a much more complex and sustainable dynamic.
It forces the creation of a microeconomy.
Yes, the text explains exactly how this incentive gap is filled. It states, quote, "It is up to the third-party developer of a Pi app or service to decide whether they want to provide staking incentives to pioneers."
And it doesn't just leave the developers hanging, it actually lists what those incentives might look like.
Right, it gives examples.
These developers can offer app features, overall quality, user experience, in-app rewards, promotions, or other benefits.
The protocol steps completely out of the way. It provides the secure cryptographic infrastructure for locking the asset, but it demands that the creator and the user negotiate the value of that lockup directly.
So, if I am a solo vibe coder, and I want you to stake your Pi to boost my app up the leaderboard, I cannot rely on the blockchain to pay you on my behalf.
Yep.
I have to actually give you a compelling reason to sacrifice your liquidity. I have to offer you tangible value within the borders of my own application.
So what might that look like in practice for a user?
Well, let's say it's a productivity app. Maybe if you stake your Pi on my app, I automatically unlock all the premium features for you for the duration you stake.
Mm-hmm.
You get the pro version completely for free.
That's a great incentive.
Or if it's something like city games, maybe staking grants you exclusive in-game items or a multiplier on your high score or access to a VIP tournament tier.
Right.
Or, as the text points out, maybe the incentive isn't a digital item at all. Maybe the incentive is simply the overall quality and user experience.
Which is often the best incentive.
Right. Maybe
Yeah.
the app is just so incredibly useful to your daily life that you willingly lock up a small amount of Pi just to ensure the developer gets the visibility they need to keep the servers running.
This architecture creates a tight, highly accountable feedback loop. The pioneer stakes because they genuinely believe in the utility of the app, or because the developer has negotiated a direct app-specific trade that benefits the user.
So it's not just blind speculation.
Exactly. This ensures that when we see an app rising to the top of the Pi Apps tab, it is doing so because it is providing real, verifiable value to the community, not because it is exploiting a flaw in the network's token emission schedule.
It perfectly aligns the incentives for everyone involved.
It really does.
The developer gets access to the 60 million users without having to navigate ad bureaucracies. The Pioneer gets app-specific utility, premium features, or exclusive rewards.
And the network itself maintains a clean, unmanipulated directory that accurately reflects the genuine interests of its population.
It just shifts the burden of reward entirely off of the blockchain and directly onto the shoulders of the people building on top of it. It's a true free market of attention.
It is the foundational requirement for a sustainable digital economy. By removing protocol-level rewards, the network guarantees that the economic weight applied to the directory is always, always authentic.
Well, we have covered an incredible amount of ground today unpacking this single document from June 2026.
We really have.
We started by looking at the modern developer's dilemma, that paradox where AI has handed everyone a printing press, completely flooding the market with software, but leaving creators starved for the most scarce resource on the planet, which is human attention.
And we examine how the traditional internet attempted to solve this sorting problem with comments and star ratings, and why those systems inevitably collapse under the weight of bot farms and astroturfing due to their lack of friction.
Which led us to the core of the update, Pi Network's ecosystem directory staking, the introduction of economic weight.
Right. The concept that taking a cryptographic asset and locking it in a mainnet smart contract creates a verifiable, manipulation-resistant signal of community interest.
And we explored how this lightweight utility acts as a literal lifeline for the vibe coder, allowing solo creators to completely bypass corporate ad bureaucracies and instantly tap into an engaged audience of 60 million pioneers.
We also analyzed the empirical evidence of this model through the beta launch of City Games demonstrating how organic, decentralized community staking of 3.19 million pi could drive over 1 million user engagements in under a week.
rivaling the metrics of massive centralized marketing campaigns.
Exactly.
And finally, we dissected the brilliant, counterintuitive twist of protocol neutrality, the fact that the network offers zero guaranteed rewards for staking, effectively preventing the directory from being overrun by mercenary yield farmers.
Instead, it forces developers to build real microeconomies, offering genuine in-app utility and premium features to earn the community's trust and capital. It truly is a masterclass in behavioral economics and incentive design. It provides a blueprint for how a network can organize information cleanly, but it also raises a much larger, more philosophical issue for us to consider as we look beyond the specific
I
document.
love a good lingering thought. What should we be taking away from this?
Well, we have spent this time analyzing how decentralized curation functions within a specific Web3 environment like the Pi ecosystem.
Right.
But I want you to apply this framework to the broader internet you interact with every single day.
Okay.
Think about your social media feeds, think about the streaming platforms you use, or the news aggregators that curate your mornings. Right now, human attention is the absolute most valuable commodity on Earth.
Undoubtedly.
And currently, opaque algorithms designed by massive corporations dictate entirely how your attention is directed. They decide what goes viral. They decide what information you consume.
Because they control the delivery trucks.
Exactly. But if we are truly entering an era where users can securely and directly invest their own cryptographic economic weight to curate visibility,
Yeah.
how long until those traditional top-down advertising models start looking like obsolete relics of the past? Will we eventually reach a point where we no longer passively consume the front page, but we collectively stake our way to the front page of everything we interact with?
Wow. Imagine waking up and knowing that the news stories, the videos, and the apps presented to you aren't there because a black box algorithm sold your attention to the highest bidder, but because a verifiable community of humans put their own assets on the line to say this matters.
That is a completely different version of the internet.
It really is. Well, that is all the time we have for today. We want to thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the evolving mechanics of the attention economy. As always, keep reading, keep exploring, and keep questioning the information around you. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.